My wife cheated on me with her boss, then suddenly claimed I owed her $250, $0 in a secret prenup, and now she's using that to take everything, including our house, while I find out she's been secretly sabotaging our estate for years. I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, and then it turned into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The most unexpected moment. Finding out my wife, Lisa, who I thought was the love of my life, was cheating on me with her boss, a guy named. Yeah, the guy who always looked like he had it all together, the kind of guy who oozed confidence and charm. That revelation hit me like a ton of bricks, but what followed was even more shocking. Lisa suddenly claiming I owed her $250, $0 in some secret prenup I never knew existed. That's when everything started to unravel. Lisa and I had been together for 8 years. We met in college, got married right after graduation, and for the most part I thought we had a decent life. She was the kind of woman who always knew how to make herself look perfect. Designer clothes, perfect hair, the kind of smile that could hide 1,000 lies. She was a bitchy woman, no doubt, always quick to dismiss my opinions if they didn't suit her, always putting her needs first. We fought a lot, especially over money, but I thought that was normal. She was the kind of person who'd spend thousands on shoes and handbags, then turn around and complain about how tight the budget was. But I never suspected she was cheating, not until I saw the messages. It all started when I noticed her acting strange. She was secretive on her phone, always hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day, and she suddenly started working late more often. I'd come home from work and find her with her laptop open, typing furiously. I brushed it off at first, told myself she was just busy with work, but the gut feeling kept gnawing at me. Then I found the messages. It was accidental. I was checking her email by mistake, trying to get her to look at some bills, and I saw the texts between her and it was explicit. They were having sex, talking about sneaking around, planning trips. I felt my stomach drop. I read every word, every lie, every excuse she used to justify it. When I confronted her, Lisa's reaction was classic. She looked at me with her bitchy smirk, rolled her eyes, and said I was overreacting. "You're paranoid," she snapped, trying to brush it off. "And I were just talking about work stuff. You're seeing things that aren't there." I lost it. I told her I saw the messages, that I knew she'd been sleeping with her boss. Her face twisted into a look of pure contempt. She laughed, a cold, hollow laugh, and told me I was jealous, that was just a better man than I could ever be. She tried to turn it around, saying I was insecure, that I had no right to accuse her of cheating. But I knew the truth. I saw her betrayal right in front of me. That night was a storm of emotions. I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry, and deeply sad all at once. I'd loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I could see the cracks in everything we'd built. I wondered how long she'd been cheating, whether it was just a fling or something more serious. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she'd been lying to me for months. She'd been sneaking around, hiding messages, lying about her late nights. And all the while she was pretending everything was fine. I felt like a fool who had trusted someone who never really cared. The worst part. She had the nerve to tell me I owed her $250, $0 in some secret prenup she claimed I signed years ago. Said it was a legal binding agreement that made her entitled to everything I owned, including the house we bought together. That was the first real punch, how she was planning to take everything from me, while I was still trying to process the betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I felt helpless, like I'd been hit by a freight train. I looked at her phone again, searching for more clues, more lies. I found messages from planning their next secret meetup. I found emails with her lawyer about the prenup, which she tried to hide. It was all a mess, her lies, her manipulation, her betrayal. I realized I was in deep, and I had no idea how to get out of it. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially after what she did. I decided then and there that I would fight for what was mine, no matter what it took. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to go to screw me over. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with laughing, touching, making plans behind my back. It was like I'd been punched repeatedly, and the pain just kept building. I started digging into everything I could find: bank statements, emails, legal documents, anything that might give me a clue about her true plans. That's when I stumbled on the prenup she kept talking about. She kept insisting I signed it years ago, but I had no memory of it. I was sure I would have remembered signing a document that said she could take half of everything I owned if we ever split. But there it was, buried in a folder I never opened, sealed and signed, dated 5 years ago. She'd been planning this for a long time. I couldn't believe she'd been secretly sabotaging our estate for years. I found out she'd been siphoning money from our joint accounts, transferring funds into accounts I didn't know about. She'd been paying off her credit cards with money I thought was going toward the mortgage. She'd even been secretly investing in things I had no idea about, all without my knowledge. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she'd been planning her escape for a long time. She was building her own empire while I was obliviously handing her the keys. I had to confront her again, but this time with hard evidence. One afternoon, I called her at work and told her I knew everything about the prenup, about the secret accounts. Her reaction was priceless. She snapped at me, calling me paranoid again, accusing me of invading her privacy. "You have no right to accuse me of anything," she spat. "You're just jealous because is better than you, you're insecure and you're ruining everything." I told her I'd had enough, that I wasn't going to let her steal my house, my money, my life, that I knew she'd been lying to me for years and I had proof. She started crying, which was just a show. I could see through it. She's always been good at manipulation, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her I was filing for divorce and I was going to fight for everything. That I'd get a lawyer and uncover every lie she'd told, every dollar she'd stolen. I was furious but also scared. I knew she was dangerous. She'd lied so much, I didn't know what she was capable of. She tried to deny everything, but I had the emails, the bank statements, the texts. I had her cornered. That's when she turned on the charm, the fake tears, the "please don't do this" act. But I saw right through her. She was a liar, a manipulator, and now I was finally seeing her for what she really was. In the days that followed, I started making plans. I contacted a lawyer, gathered all the evidence I could find, and prepared for the fight of my life. I knew she'd try to come after me with everything she had: legal tricks, false accusations, maybe even trying to turn the kids against me. But I was done being a victim. I wasn't going to let her take my house, my money, my dignity. The betrayal had cut deep, but I was determined to stand my ground. I realized I'd been blind to her true nature for too long. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, was a complete stranger. And now I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter what it took. The more I dug, the more I discovered how deep her lies went. She'd been secretly sabotaging our estate for years, draining our savings, hiding assets, and planning her escape. The prenup wasn't just a piece of paper. It was her shield, her weapon, her way to take everything I had. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, but at the same time, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, especially not after the betrayal of the lies about the prenup and the years of deception. I started to realize that this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about respect, about standing up for myself, about reclaiming what was mine. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined. I was going to fight for my life, my home, my dignity, no matter what. After I gathered all the evidence, bank statements, emails, legal documents, I knew I had to act fast. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer first thing the next morning. Sitting across from him, I laid everything out: the affair, the secret accounts, the prenup, her plans to take everything. My lawyer, a sharp guy named Tom, listened carefully, eyes narrowing as I spoke. He told me that what I'd uncovered was serious, and that she'd been planning this for years. The way she'd been secretly draining our joint funds and hiding assets was a clear sign she was trying to cut me out completely. The prenup, if valid, would give her a legal basis to claim half of everything I owned, plus more, if she could prove she'd contributed or that it was a mutual agreement. Tom explained that I had a good chance to fight her claims, but I'd need to act quickly. We started drafting a legal strategy, filing for divorce, requesting a freeze on our assets, demanding full disclosure of her finances. I also asked him to look into the validity of that prenup. I couldn't believe she'd gone so far, secretly sabotaging our estate, lying to me for years, and now trying to use some legal loophole to take everything I had. It felt like I'd been sucker punched in the gut. The worst part: she was still acting like she was the victim, crying fake tears, trying to guilt me into backing down, but I wasn't falling for her act anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept thinking about her, how she'd lied so effortlessly, how she'd used me, manipulated me, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I kept replaying her words. "You owe me $250, $0, she'd said with that bitchy smirk. I couldn't understand where she got such an absurd figure, but I knew it was part of her plan to scare me into submission. She wanted me to think I was in debt to her, that I owed her everything, even though I had no memory of signing any prenup like that. It was all a lie, a way to control me. I decided I needed to confront her again, this time with the legal documents in hand. I called her at work and told her I'd found everything, that I knew about the secret accounts, and that I was preparing to take action. Her reaction: she tried to dismiss me, claiming I was overreacting. "You're just jealous," she spat, "is better than you. You're insecure and pathetic." That's when I snapped. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I had the evidence to prove her lies, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Her face twisted with anger and panic. She knew I was serious. Over the next few days, I kept building my case. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace her hidden funds, and I ordered a full financial disclosure from her. Meanwhile, she started making threats, saying I'd regret this, that she'd take everything, including the house, and that I'd be left with nothing. She even accused me of cheating on her, trying to distract from her own betrayal. I could see her desperation. The more she tried to manipulate me, the more I saw through her. I wasn't going to let her destroy me or our life together. I was ready for the legal battle ahead. I knew she'd fight dirty, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. She built her empire of lies, but I was about to tear it all down. The thing that haunted me most was how she'd been secretly sabotaging our estate, draining our savings, and planning her escape for years. I found evidence of her transferring money into offshore accounts, paying off her credit cards with our joint funds, and investing in things I never authorized. It was like she'd been slowly eroding everything I cared about, all while smiling and pretending everything was fine. I realized she'd been lying to me every day, hiding her true intentions behind a mask of the perfect wife. That realization made me angrier than ever, but also more determined. I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd spent years trusting her, believing in our future, and now I saw her for what she truly was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get her hands on my money. The betrayal cut deep, but I was finally ready to take control and fight for what's mine. The legal battle was brutal from the start. I knew she'd try every trick in the book to keep what she wanted, and sure enough, she went on the offensive almost immediately. She hired her own lawyer, some slick guy named Greg, who tried to spin her narrative as the innocent victim, claiming I was abusive and controlling, that she deserved everything because she was entitled due to the years she sacrificed for our marriage. She was good at lying, and she knew how to play the victim card better than anyone. Meanwhile, I was poring over the documents, preparing to fight her tooth and nail. One of the most shocking revelations came when I subpoenaed her emails and financial records. I discovered a pattern of her secretly transferring large sums of money into offshore accounts, hundreds of thousands of dollars she'd hidden from me. She'd been funneling money out of our joint accounts for years, money I thought was going toward the mortgage, the kids' education, or our savings. Instead, she was building her own stash, planning her escape while I was clueless. She'd also been paying off her credit cards with our joint funds, racking up debt on top of everything else. It was clear she'd been manipulating the finances to her advantage, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. The worst part was the fake emotional outbursts she put on. She'd burst into tears, accuse me of being a terrible husband, and cry about how she deserved her share because she'd sacrificed so much. But the truth was, she'd been secretly working against me. I saw through her act now. She was a master manipulator, and she'd been using her charm and her tears to get her way. I started to realize that her entire persona was a facade. Her bitchy, manipulative side was just the surface. Beneath it was a woman who'd lie, cheat, and steal to get what she wanted. I also found out that she'd been secretly sabotaging our estate for years. She'd been draining our savings, hiding assets, and even secretly investing in properties and businesses without my knowledge. She'd set up accounts in her name, transferred money, and made deals behind my back. She'd been planning her escape for a long time, and I was just now catching up. It was like I'd been living with a stranger all along, someone who was capable of lying to my face, betraying me, and destroying everything we'd built together. The legal process was draining, both emotionally and financially. I was spending every waking moment fighting her, trying to prove her lies and protect what was mine. I had to be strategic, filing for a temporary restraining order, requesting a full disclosure of her assets, and preparing for the inevitable court showdown. I knew she'd do everything she could to sway the judge, to make me look like the bad guy, but I also had the truth on my side. I kept reminding myself that this was about justice, about exposing her betrayal and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Throughout it all, her behavior grew more desperate. She started making wild accusations, claiming I was abusive, claiming I cheated on her. She even tried to manipulate the kids, telling them I was a terrible father, all to turn them against me. But I stayed focused. I knew her game, and I refused to fall for her lies. I kept gathering evidence, talking to my lawyer, and preparing for the day she'd have to answer for her actions. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined to see this through. I couldn't let her walk away with everything. Her betrayal had cost me enough. Now, I was fighting to take back my life, piece by piece. The court dates kept coming, and each one revealed more of how deep her deception ran. I remember sitting in that courtroom, feeling like I was in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She sat across from me, her face painted with that fake, bitchy smile that she'd perfected over the years. She tried to look innocent, but I knew better. I had the evidence, her secret transfers, her lies, her manipulation, and I was ready to use it all. The judge listened carefully to both sides, and I could see her lawyer Greg trying to spin stories, trying to downplay her theft and betrayal. But I had the facts. I had the proof. One of the key moments was when I presented the offshore account statements, showing hundreds of thousands of dollars she'd hidden from me. The judge's eyebrows shot up. It was clear that she'd been planning her escape for a long time, and her attempts to deny everything only made her look more guilty. I also brought in the emails and texts, proof that she'd been cheating on me with, that she'd been lying about her work hours, and that she'd been secretly sabotaging our estate. Watching her squirm under the weight of the evidence was almost satisfying, but I also felt a deep sense of betrayal. How did I miss all this? How did I not see that the woman I loved was capable of this kind of deception? Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to spin her narrative, claiming I was abusive, manipulative, and that she deserved everything because of her sacrifices. She tried to paint herself as the victim, crying fake tears and blaming me for everything. But the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was too overwhelming. The prenup, which she insisted was invalid, was actually enforceable. She'd signed it willingly, and it was clear she'd planned to use it to take half of everything I owned. The judge ordered her to provide full disclosure of all her assets, including the offshore accounts and investments I'd uncovered. That was a blow to her carefully crafted lies. It was during those hearings that I started to feel a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger because she'd betrayed me, lied to my face, and tried to ruin me financially. Relief because I finally had the truth out in the open. I realized I'd been a fool for so long, trusting her, believing in the fairy tale. But now I was seeing her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. I was also starting to see how much she'd hurt me, how she'd used me, and how far she'd gone to destroy what we had. The worst part was knowing that she was still scheming behind the scenes. Even as she faced the court, I knew her mind was working overtime trying to find new ways to manipulate the system. But I was prepared. I had a good lawyer, and I was determined to fight for my rights. I also started to plan how I'd rebuild my life after this, how I'd get out of her shadow and move on. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and the pain of betrayal still lingered. But I also knew that I had to take control for my own sanity and future. I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me completely. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I finally took back what was mine and faced the truth head-on. After months of legal battles, the final verdict was finally in. The judge ruled in my favor, confirming that the prenup was valid and enforceable. It also ordered Lisa to disclose all her hidden assets, including the offshore accounts and investments I'd uncovered. The court awarded me a significant portion of our joint estate, and most importantly, it prevented her from taking the house. That was the one thing I fought hardest to keep: our home, the place we'd built our lives, and the place I still wanted to call my sanctuary. Watching her face as the judge delivered the ruling was like a slow-motion punch. Her carefully crafted facade crumbled. Her bitchy smirk was replaced with shock and rage. In the aftermath, I felt a strange mix of relief, anger, and sadness. Relief because I finally had clarity and the nightmare was coming to an end. Anger because her betrayal ran so deep she had lied, cheated, and manipulated her way into my life, only to try and destroy me. Sadness because I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved, and the marriage I'd believed in. But I also knew that I had to move forward. I had to rebuild my life, piece by piece, and learn to trust again. I realized how much I'd been blind to her true nature, but I also learned to see the warning signs I'd ignored. The most important lesson I took from this is that no matter how perfect someone seems, deep down, they can hide a lot of darkness. Trust has to be earned, and sometimes you only see the truth when everything is falling apart. I also learned that standing up for yourself is crucial. I could have let her take everything, let her manipulate me into accepting her lies, but I chose to fight, and I won. That victory isn't just about money or property. It's about reclaiming my dignity and my sense of self. Now, I'm in a better place. I've moved out of the house, started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I'm slowly rebuilding my confidence. I still get angry sometimes, especially when I think about how she betrayed me, but I remind myself that I'm stronger than her lies. I've learned that sometimes the biggest lesson is about self-respect, knowing your worth, standing firm, and never letting someone manipulate or betray you without consequences. To anyone out there going through something similar, my advice is this: don't ignore the red flags. Trust your instincts. When something feels off, dig deeper. And if you discover betrayal, don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours. It's hard. Sometimes it feels like you're fighting a losing battle. But in the end, truth and justice tend to prevail. You might get hurt, you might lose a lot, but you'll come out stronger on the other side. And most importantly, never forget your own worth. No one should ever make you feel less than you are.